What is up, guys? Rick Cactus here, and today we are going to be showcasing a brand new weapon added to Destiny 2 with the addition of the November Faction Rally. This is a weapon that I am really interested in, and I fully predict is going to start seeing a lot of play. This is going to make waves within Destiny 2, and that weapon is the Stochastic Variable Future War Cult Submachine Gun. So again, this is a Future War Cult vendor weapon. You acquire this weapon by pledging at least one of your characters to Future War Cult and then simply getting Future War Cult packages. Unfortunately, the only other thing I can say now is good luck. It is a random drop, and some of you will get it right away, some of you will have to turn in a lot of packages to get it. But this little submachine gun is, I think you could make the argument for, and I'm going to make that argument, the best energy submachine gun for PvP specifically, but frankly potentially all around in Destiny 2 right now. And here's why. So, the Stochastic Variable is a really interesting submachine gun. It belongs to the 900 rounds per minute archetype. Now that is by far the most common SMG archetype. And all SMGs that shoot at 900 rounds per minute will also do the same damage. So you have a lot of weapons doing relatively the same thing, and it takes a lot to stand out. Well, one of the perks the Stochastic Variable has is Phase Magazine. Now this is a really important perk, and it does something very unique in the fact that it completely changes the nature of this submachine gun. If that perk is equipped, it will change the rate of fire from 900 to 600 rounds per minute and increase the damage to match other 600 rounds per minute submachine guns. It also has a perk, Tap the Trigger. This increases accuracy on initial trigger pull, meaning that when you first get into engagement and start shooting, you're going to have an accuracy advantage over someone who doesn't have this perk. Now, why is that important? Well, I personally do not like the 900 rounds per minute SMG archetype. If you do like it, more power to you. Use what you enjoy, that's totally fine. But again, I personally feel like it just doesn't kill fast enough to warrant its insane recoil and usually terrible range. So the 600 rounds per minute archetype is where it's at, and the dominance of the anti-OBD is kind of a testament to that fact. The 600 rounds per minute archetype is really deadly in PvP. But there are zero legendary energy submachine guns that natively have 600 rounds per minute. The only way to acquire that is to have Phase Magazine. So automatically, that makes the Stochastic Variable very important and unique because only two other legendary SMGs also have Phase Magazine: the Phosphorus MG4 and the Out of Options. So, you can really see the position we're in now with this weapon. The 600 rounds per minute archetype is really good in PvP. The only way to get an energy version of that, which is very important because it frees up your kinetic slot for other weapons than the anti-OBD, is to have Phase Magazine. There's only two other weapons with Phase Magazine. If the Stochastic Variable is better than the other two, it's pretty obvious that it is now the best energy SMG, and that's exactly the case. When we compare these three weapons, all with Phase Magazine equipped, the Stochastic Variable has more range, even by just a little bit. It does definitively have more range than the other two alternatives. So therefore, your damage output and the amount of damage you can do out to range is going to be just a few feet better than these other two weapons. And of course, going from 20 damage, which is a maximum headshot damage with the 600 rounds per minute archetype, down to 19 is going to make you have to shoot one whole extra round, and that can really cause the difference in a PvP gunfight. So having that little bit of extra range is extremely important. That's already a huge factor in determining that the variable is on top. But the second factor is that, forget all the Phase Magazine stuff, Tap the Trigger is just a really, really good perk. That initial burst of accuracy is going to help you so much in many PvP gunfights. It is a legitimately top tier PvP perk, and it's compared to Pulse Monitor on the out of options and Dynamic Sway Reduction on the Phosphorus. Like, those aren't anywhere near as good as Tap the Trigger. So you have an SMG that puts itself into a fantastic PvP position with Pulse Magazine and is better than its only two competitors with the same setup. And there you have it. The Stochastic variable is the best legendary PvP energy SMG. I definitely foresee this getting ran a lot with the Mighty Multi-Tool especially. The main use now is the Mighty Multi-Tool with a backup energy Last Hope. And is this better than the Last Hope? Well, I definitely can't say that. The Last Hope is incredibly powerful. But from my experience in PvP, this is a powerful little gun. It doesn't have anywhere near the amount of range that something like the Anti-Op D has. I mean, you can see, I think by this clip here, I go down to 19 at, just the beginning of medium range, which isn't fantastic. The Anti-Op is doing 20, basically out to double that range. More than double, I would even say. So you are going to have that problem there. However, if you're looking for an SMG that's great in close quarters, even if it's going down to 17, 18, 19, it still packs a punch. And the fact that it's doing a lot less rounds per minute, and the fact that you have Tap the Trigger means that this weapon is very easy to use and control. You just set your sights over someone's head and hold the trigger, and the gun pretty much does the rest. You are not recoiling off target pretty much at all with this gun. I would say this gun is easier to control than the Anti-Op D. So if you're an Anti-Op D user, you can switch your loadout, put this weapon on, get a solid energy SMG, not as good as the Anti-Op, but solid, and then again free up that kinetic slot for a bunch of other options. However, I do want to say that because of the limited optimal range of this weapon, you are going to end up using it more as a scenario-specific weapon rather than relying on it as your main weapon like you can with the Anti-Op. Kind of like the Last Hope. You aren't running around with the Last Hope. Well, you shouldn't be running around with the Last Hope just as your primary weapon, essentially. You use it in backup scenarios when you're getting pushed, when you're in close range, and this weapon is going to act the same way. Now, all this time we've been mainly focusing on PvP, and that's, I think, where this gun is definitely going to make its home. But is it any good in PvE? Well, it's decent. It's certainly not a bad weapon. The 600 rounds per minute archetype packs a punch in PvE as well. It really feels like using an auto rifle when you're running around with this weapon, in a strike or in a public event. And that's pretty cool. However, why not just use an auto rifle? Like in PvP, you have that extra killing potential in close range. This thing out damages something like even the Uriel's Gift because it shoots so much faster and does pretty comparable headshot damage. But in PvE, you don't really need to kill a goblin just like that much faster. In PvP, you definitely do, but in PvE, you're much better off with the more well-rounded, Uriel's Gift, for example. Also, the massive magazines and the fact that you can get a lot closer in PvE kind of makes it so that the 900 rounds per minute SMG archetype, even though I don't like them in PvP, they're a lot more usable in PvE. So I think that this weapon in PvE, it's certainly not a bad weapon, but it doesn't really do anything that special that I would say, yeah, run this weapon all the time in strikes or public events. And so guys, that's it for the showcase of this weapon, if that's all you're interested in. But I do want to take a little bit of time and talk about this weapon's addition and the new faction rally. I think this weapon is a great example of what Bungie should be looking to do in Destiny 2. Introduce new weapons that give you a legitimate reason to use. This is a really good weapon. It has a legitimate reason to use. You're going to see this appear more and more in the Crucible, and that means a little bit more of this and a little bit less, for example, Last Hopes, for people who enjoy this SMG more. Again, I'm not saying it's better than the Last Hope, but it will start to replace it on some people's loadouts. And that's great. Because what's the most frustrating about PvP? It's getting killed by the same weapons over and over and over again. A stale meta is just horrible for pretty much any game, let alone a loot-based game where you should have all of these options of different weapons. And again, yet you see only a few in PvP. So I hope Bungie takes this as an example, and when they're looking to add more weapons in future faction rallies with the new expansion that we got coming out, hopefully they are adding stuff with the other weaponry in mind. You can add all of the 450 auto rifles you want, but if none of them are better than the Uriel's Gift, then everyone's gonna keep using the Uriel's Gift. It's gonna get hugely problematic. So again, Bungie, you're really gonna have to introduce new perks, introduce potentially better perks, different archetypes, all of that stuff, weapons that give us a reason to use them over the competition and, importantly, alongside the competition. And so guys, that's it for the video. Definitely wanted to bring your attention to this weapon. If you get this gun, don't just look at the 900 rounds per minute and delete it. Definitely take it into PvP. I think a lot of you will find it very, very good. So guys, if you want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.